I did not want to watch The Tiger King, though. It just felt like thrust upon all of us, and I'm like, well, if I'm gonna understand any like cultural references, I need to watch it now.
That's why I watched the first one too. I had like somebody telling me over and over again, like, you gotta watch it. So finally I gave in and watched an episode and was like, thanks, I hate it.
I got a text message from my brother who said, yo, what's up with big cat people? And my response to that was like, I love you so much because you're watching this and I have someone to talk to about it. But in absolutely every way, big cat people are weird. Like,
yeah, well, that's what they say. That's how they start the show. They're like, big cat people are strange.
In like
wrote a
their
song about
style.
it. Like, hear it. Here it go.
I saw a tiger. They're not just strange. They're like very bad people. Everyone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's like a really like, it's a really specifically like American like flavor of bummer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not about it.
Flo, you are frozen once more with rage at that show.
That's all right. Flo's just concentrating really hard.
Uh-oh. I hope I come back.
Right now.
I think it'll be actually funny if that's like your post the entire episode.
I'm telling you, now that we're doing these YouTube
God.
ones, I feel like there's so much more pressure now, now that we're visible as well as audible.
We are allegedly more technologically adept than we were a couple weeks ago.
All right, we got what we need. Let's
start the show.
Let's do the thing.
Voices.
The things we say.
Voices.
What's in your head?
Everybody take a swig.
Voices. The things they said. Voices. Some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices. Things we say. Voices. They're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You've got Kemp
and Skylar
and Shannon
and Flo.
And we have a full house for this episode.
So happy.
How's everyone doing?
Better.
Yeah?
Yeah.
In what way?
I struggled last week. Like, last week was hard. I was crying at my desk every afternoon. I felt really disconnected. I'm an extrovert, and so I usually on a daily basis interact with probably at minimum like 10 to 15 people, and maximum maybe 350 to 400 people. And it was just like, and here I am like interacting with one person part of the day because I'm still working. Right. And so it was hard. And I was, really struggling. Our mental health is fragile and sensitive to our environment. And when things change, it sometimes changes along with it.
Definitely. Sure. It feels like the transition hits everybody at a different time and in a different way too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And like for folks who already have, like mental health things, like my buddy was at a grocery store in Chicago, and
there's the cup.
The guy in front of him, look at that cup. Oof.
She's a real beaut.
Oh my God. I can't.
So good. So fucking good. We suck.
I refuse to do a pun with that. We already heard Flo do one pun. There's one listener in particular. Actually, he doesn't even listen, so it doesn't matter.
It was a pun like no other.
It was
pun like no other.
Oh, there it is. All right.
There it is.
Okay.
All right, I'm done.
I mean, just to your point, my buddy was at a grocery store and there's a guy in front of him yelling at all the staffers, and he told the guy to kind of knock it off, and like, they're under just as much stress as everyone else. And the guy got in his face, and my friend is like, backing away. His wife is pregnant and he doesn't want like this dude giving him coronavirus to fucking.
Right.
So I feel like tensions are going to be things are gonna feel a little bit weirder from day to day in the next few weeks.
Yeah, totally. I live with anxiety disorder and major depressive disorder, and I have really felt myself on that roller coaster, like 100%. And being locked down over the last 3 days, which was my first experience with being locked down as a result of having some health stuff on Sunday night, was boy, was that a test. So yeah, just to Flo's point, like our mental health is just so impacted by this whole thing, and we'll talk later about
We will, yeah.
that.
I think we all know that things are going to get a little real in the next couple of weeks, and so it'll be good for us to kind of find ways to check in with ourselves, check out of the media, and even check in with others who matter to us. But let's begin with how about let's talk about the local news. Everyone down for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Can't wait.
Okay. Well, Skylar, you shared this, I guess it's like an opinion piece by RE Graswich.
Did we just lose Flo?
I believe she's...
I'm still here.
Okay, cool.
Sorry. No, that's fine. RE is he was a longtime journalist at the Bee for, I believe, like 35 years. He left there and worked in the Kevin Johnson City Hall for a few years. Then he left there and like sort of acted as like some kind of like whistleblower type character, and like, basically came to the News and Review and told us about how they use Gmail accounts so that none of their the shit that might be controversial publicly could be accessed in public record. So he's an interesting guy. He's sort of come back on the scene doing these essays in Inside Sacramento, which is a little bit more of a bougier publication. It's a print publication that sort of tries to go with a different focus in each neighborhood. But they do have some good stuff sometimes. Anyway, you sent a piece, Skylar, that Graswich wrote. Basically, he's sort of ringing the death knell for the McClatchy empire.
And he's not feeling super bad about that.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, the McClatchys, that was the family based out of Sacramento that started the media empire that sort of the centerpiece was the Sacramento Bee. And this spanned throughout the country, papers, dozens of papers, and even media outlets in other countries. But little by little, as Graswich argued, this family was pretty rich, and according to him, they sort of were gouging businesses locally with ad prices because, by the end, they were the last daily paper.
They're the only game in town, yeah. Real quick, I just want to throw this out because this is not something I stumbled across. This is something that a friend of mine, Phil, sent me with this in mind, with the idea that we would kind of go over this on a podcast. And I want to shout that out because I would like to invite other people to do the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
totally.
Something you want us to discuss or cover, we're always open and interested to do that. We want to be responsive to you listeners and patrons, and let's make this work on a community level. In any event, it's a classic sort of multimillionaire hubris story, and then they started making bad decisions as the empire aged. They bought Knight Ridder at a time when they really shouldn't have. They paid $6.5 billion for that. And that really ended up hobbling them the most, to a point where now they've basically the empire is over. And they have just sold McClatchy to a hedge fund. And that's kind of that. Daryl was out there saying that he's going to try and find some whales.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And by Daryl, I mean the friend of the show, Master of Crows, mayor of Sacramento. But So, he's sort of saying it's the end of this paper. They can't even like pay anyone's pensions anymore.
Right.
There are still people working there. There's actually some, I really like some of their young reporters too. Teresa Clift, I don't know how many bylines she can get done in a week. They've got good reporters, and a lot of these media outlets still do have great reporters, but they push them to their limits. They're young people, and they don't have the guidance of kind of the old tried and true journalists and editors, because those are the first ones on the chopping block when they start doing buyouts, because
they actually have to pay those guys.
They actually have to pay them. They don't have to pay their cub reporters or, the 20-something-year-old that they're like, hey, just, this job would be great experience for you.
Right.
So that's a bummer, right? We've seen the Bee just be completely gutted. This hedge fund issue, it implies that hedge funds have taken over papers throughout the US, and they literally just fired, 80% of the staff at these papers until they were a shadow of what they used to be. And then these big businesses could sort of just run rampant with their shoddy business practices throughout the region, because they've got nobody sort of holding truth to power. So to me, it's it's very sad to be, to be going through this pandemic, right, in our region, when our daily paper of record is totally hobbled, even though it was ruled by a really shitty millionaire family. And that's always been the way that our newspapers have worked. It's always been shitty millionaires kind of running the show. And then even our alt weekly, as we all know, the Sacramento News and Review, it had to cut its print product right when this all started.
Right.
Because what do you do with a free paper that's sitting, at your coffee shops, on the corner, at your bars? That's when you read it. And so they've had to just cut operations, and they're hoping to be able to start up again once all of this is lifted. But you really don't know. And the News and Review, it's run by the publisher's name is a guy named Jeff Von Kanel, and he's probably the best businessman in the alt weekly business. They've outlasted some of the biggest names in alt weeklies in the country. But this is a tough one, and it's a tough time. And just with some other media outlets, you see them sort of reaching out to millionaires and famous people from Sacramento, asking them please save us, which I hate that.
Right.
I get it. I get that they're just trying to stay afloat, but it's does every media outlet, does Washington Post, run by or owned by Jeff Bezos of Amazon, right? The LA Times, saved by another billionaire, quote unquote saved. The New York Times, Carlos Slim and the Sulzberger family. It's this is the business model with our daily papers, and that's kind of a problem in my book.
Right.
I've been talking to some to go.
That's what I was going to say. There's obviously there's a part of this that is sad and in a nostalgic way, and obviously sad for people who have made careers out of this that are kind of in question now. It's not, I'm not trying to denigrate any of that, but if you look at how all so many other industries have gone since the advent of the internet and streaming in general, the music industry has been completely turned on its head by things like Spotify, Netflix completely changed the game for how the film industry operates, and because of that, in part, I can only speak for myself, but part of my response to that has been the kind of the silver lining of that for me has been, as a consumer, has been to be oh, I don't need to have 500 CDs, I don't need to have a whole bookshelf full of DVDs. There's content out there that I can access. I don't need to own all this stuff. And so a part of me, and maybe this is a stupid analogy, but a part of me feels with print media sort of looking like it's sort of going the way of the dodo. I think maybe there's I don't know, maybe there's this, I don't know. Maybe this might be a dumb guy opinion, but I feel there's, I don't know. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to not have, to be able to not make stuff to get your ideas across. You know, I think there is an application that is good about the internet. You don't need something physically in your hands, and this just feels like more of that to me. Now, it fucking sucks for the people who make their living like that, and I know I'm not sounding hugely sympathetic to that right now, but I am. And I think that these are people who do incredibly important things that enrich society and make our lives better. And so I'm really I really hope that going forward there is a way to keep people employed and doing these things for us, because we need them.
The problem right now is that people aren't employed.
Right.
You know, as these papers go away, these news jobs are not popping up, you know, at web outlets or whatever, the way that we'd like to see them, in a way that would sort of overcome the loss of jobs at papers. Not only that, the web media bubble burst, you know, the last year or two, and a lot of folks lost their jobs. So that's hard, right? Like, you don't have, journalism is a skill set. There are skill sets involved in it, and there are not spaces for people to practice it where they get paid enough to pay their bills, you know? Like, that's my background, and it's like, nah, I do other work now because you just can't do it. Even back when I used to write freelance for the News and Review, over about a year and a half ago, they cut their writer payment by a lot. And as soon as that happened, I was like, nah, I don't need this. I don't need them. Like, and so I moved away from it.
So something that I was thinking about, like, as I was reading this Inside Sacramento article was, and I'm an idiot when it comes to this topic, so tell me if I'm wrong, but
nobody's an idiot here, you two.
Okay. I do not have, my 100 points do not lie in this subject matter. So as I was reading, I'm hearing that the McClatchy family are just like, you know, bathing in Benjamins. They got hella money, and this dude decides he's gonna buy the Knight Ridder. Is that right? And so he pays $6.5 billion for that, and then as a result,
billion with a B.
Billion with a B. And as a result of that, the debt ended up consuming the company, right? So, and then this guy, the CEO, ends up bouncing. They give him $3.6 million when he quit in 2002, including $3.1 million in deferred compensation. And to me, when I'm reading that, what I hear is like, this is a privileged people's problem. This guy is just like, I got a bunch of money to spend, and I've got a savior complex, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy this paper that's struggling, and I'm not going to think about the potential natural consequences that come from spending $6.5 billion fucking dollars, and so
in a really
over time,
stupid way, like in a way that I feel like, because this was in what, 2012?
2012, yeah.
Like, anybody could have told this guy that this was a fucking stupid way to spend $6.5 billion, right?
Well,
totally.
Absolutely. And like Knight Ridder, just like McClatchy, it's a series of papers. It's a very large media outlet.
And this guy's mistake, $6.5 billion mistake, is now being paid for on the backs of the people who put their time, energy, skills, and passion into reporting the news, right? Because now they're unable to, or they're trying to abandon pension obligations, and they're having to, you know, and that's when the Master of Crows is like, hang on, I can save this. And so we have like a mini Gary Pruitt in Steinberg, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, and that, you know,
I agree. I mean, that was a terrible business decision, and I think people within the industry at the time were even saying, like, how the fuck, like, where is this logic coming from? And we were just starting to feel like it had been a good at least 10 years by that point since, we were realizing that like, oh fuck, our bread and butter, our cash cows, like the the classified section, that's obliterated now that Craigslist exists.
That part of this article, I have actually an excerpt of that here. Can I read that real quick? Because that was like one of the things that really stood out to me. This guy says as a BM employee meeting around 2002, I asked senior management about Craigslist, which was expanding with free online classified ads. What percentage of our profit comes from classified? I asked. The response was about 48%. Feeling the floor disappear, I asked, how do we compete with free? The answer, we're the Bee. Craigslist isn't our competition. Within 4 years, classified profits were gone. Reporters are being laid off. Like that to me is just, I don't know. Whatever. I guess I wasn't like senior management of the Bee in 2002. But
I would really like to hear if RE was actually that logical back then too, rubbing elbows with the heads of McClatchy.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess hindsight's 2020, and I can't beat up on anybody too bad over it. But the amount of hubris and like whatever, we don't have to worry about Craigslist seems incredible to me.
Yeah. So Craigslist got rid of all of that revenue from that section. The smoke and mirrors of the ads, the print ads, they could just charge an arm and a leg on that and make people think like this is what will make or break my business. Once we started doing web ads, it started to pull away some of that mysticism, because you saw just how few people were actually clicking through on web ads. So people stopped paying for both the print advertisement, and they started paying a whole lot less for their web advertisement on their sites. Then of course, social media like a Facebook and a Google came along, and really their advertisement dollars siphoned even more deeply. And it was intelligent advertisement where these companies have profiles on every user, so they can actually personalize their ads on you. And newspapers didn't have that fucking technology. And as a result, they're still catching up, and likely most of them won't be able to keep up. And so like, I think it's fine that papers are going the way of the dodo. Like that in and of itself it could be fine. I just do lament that like the business model has not been figured out in journalism.
Right.
And we cannot pay journalists today to do the work that they love to do and that they've dedicated their lives to. Really the only business models that work right now are the nonprofit model. So Cap Radio, they regularly are hiring. They're doing fine. Public radio does pretty well.
Yeah.
But they are beholden to kind of this bougie, this is how furious that makes me.
Can't even talk. I'm choking.
The bougie sort of like neo-lib class, right? The nice business Democrats. And they can't be as adversarial as like an old weekly. And then, there's other things, but really the nonprofit model is kind of the best one that's worked out so far. Yeah. I will say there is one.
But Dave, before you go on, like the thing that stands out to me is, and I don't hate to do this, but I think we have to, is that like, if we had a universal basic income, right, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Some things are not meant to be monetized. And so I feel like the news is one of those things that's a general public good. And so I want it to happen. I think we realize, while I think we're oversaturated with it, and it could in some ways right now during a pandemic, like deteriorate our mental health. The flip side of that is that we need to have trusted news sources that can vet information and provide us with facts. And I think that's even more important in an age where anybody can set up a website, and where the things that happen in our federal administration are so bizarro that sometimes you're like, am I reading The Onion or did this actually happen, right? Mm-hmm. And so we need that, and that's just a public good. It's not about whether or not this paper can afford to make money. Like, I would love to see papers that could just put out news and not have any advertisements because they are a public good. And I don't want them to be funded by the government in this way because then they're beholden in that, conflict of interest kind of way. But I want them to just be able to exist. I want people to be able to love journalism and do that work without having to worry about how they can give me clickbait headers so they can make some money. Like, I don't want that.
The other thing that's cool about a UBI idea, or an idea of like a publicly funded news source, is that it frees up journalists from having to be like, oh, well, I want to say this thing, but like Jeff Bezos will be mad at me and he owns my paper, or whichever millionaire or billionaire owns my paper. I'm kind of beholden to these guys, and a publicly funded news source does away with that problem. That frees up journalists for that.
The pushback to what you two are saying is that, you're not beholden to a billionaire, but you are beholden to the government that's paying your checks.
Right.
And the government, they, alongside the billionaires, are the ones that you have to speak most deeply the truth to power to. Now, are there publicly funded media outlets? BBC, right? PBS, right? And they do some good work. But I think there are also questions on to what degree are they really willing to throw a punch, or are they like a NPR cap radio that is like, I know who butters my bread. I know that like I've got to speak to the nice neoliberal upper middle, PMC class, right? So I agree with that. I kind of tend towards a membership model like ours. Obviously, like we're not making that much. Like we're not all gonna be able to pay rent with our Patreon money. But what I really like about that is there's an opt-in for your reader. It can be a worker, and we are doing our work for the workers, for the lower, the middle, the working class. There is a paper or a news outlet up in Mendocino County. Not many people know about them or what they're doing, but they're called the Mendocino Voice, and it's run by a couple of friends of mine, Kate Maxwell and Adrian Fernandez Bauman. And I met Adrian in Jersey a couple years back at an online news sort of forum, and basically they're running a co-op. It's sort of a socialist mentality co-op where it's like every worker at this little media outlet benefits as it grows, right? And I think that's really exciting. They still do some of the classic forms of income like ads, web ads. I believe they do fellowship money too, which is another good way to get paid for a year. Although I was in a fellowship once and I got a very important story spiked because the people that were buttering our publisher's bread didn't want that story to be published. So you gotta think deeply on like, what gives you the most freedom and what allows you to speak most freely, truth to power.
Obviously, I think the subscription model is the answer to that, right? Like if you're like doing a thing, if you're like asking for money based on what you're doing, then you can do whatever the fuck you want and people will choose to fund you or not.
There's a difference between subscription and membership model, just so you know. So subscription means that we have a paywall. You don't get our content unless you're a subscriber. Okay. Membership means our content is free to the public. All of our content is. And if you believe in what we're doing, we ask you to pledge $5 a month, $10 a month.
I meant membership then. That's what I was referring to there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm thinking though is that if we had universal basic income, I think we would be in a position where a membership model would be incredibly viable because 100%. It would basically just be going to cover the cost of the business, but it wouldn't have to be constantly worried about, well, the cost of living just increased in Sacramento. Can we afford to pay our talent what they, right? Like, and I think there are more people who are interested in journalism, but are like, but I have mouths to feed, or I need to live and I can't do this back and forth thing that would go into it truly knowing that they're going to be taken care of and really being able to give their all to it. And so I think it probably frees up, like having universal basic income, I think frees up a lot of people from being beholden to an industry that they don't believe in, or being beholden to special interest in that way, because a lot less money goes a lot farther in terms of keeping the business afloat.
I agree. And if there's a UBI setup, I think as you're describing, where it allows you to meet your needs, that allows you to meet all of your basic needs and still do this news work that you love to do, then that's fine. And if it's universal, right, then the government can't target you personally because it's universal.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. It's like, you're not going to cut universal basic income because you're mad at the news reporters.
That one
like,
person.
So you're just so you're also not going to have nurses and doctors and firefighters, right? Like, there's too much to lose. So everybody's protected by the group nature of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Well, good. We fixed it. We fixed journalism. Let's
guys.
Oh my God,
basic
so
income.
Andrew Yang
You're
was
welcome.
Right. We're so good.
Only in this late hour do I realize that Andrew Yang was the man all along.
He was right all along.
Fuck.
Yang gang.
We are now all Yang gang. Yeah. Well, should we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Ready.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some leaders not showing very much leadership.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Where do we want to begin? Who wants to start? You want to do locally with the churches?
Yeah, this church thing is out of control, man. Like, so what is it? It's the Bethany Slavic Missionary Church. We just figured out that is it a third of all the corona cases in Sacramento County are tied to this church? Because
not this church, but to churches.
Churches, yeah.
Yeah, they said 22% are tied to this church.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So like a huge number.
It like makes I like lose my breath at that thought.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like I have the Rona.
Well, so there are some unique factors about this, right? So
can
in
we
general,
lay out what happened first?
Yes, let's do that.
Flo, please go for it.
So let's see. So the church was having services. They stopped services. But what's happening is a lot of churches use a Bible study, or some people even call it a small group model, where people gather throughout the week at each other's homes and fellowship that way. And apparently this church was continuing to do that, even though they had stopped their in-person big services on Sundays. And so then people in the church, because what often happens is you're in these small groups and there's one or two people who maybe are facilitating multiple groups, or maybe the pastor comes to that one. And so now their pastor is I believe, hospitalized. I know he is incredibly sick with it. And then they have a bunch of their members who also have it. And so when the county decided to step in, they basically said, leave us alone. So the larger church body, not specifically this particular church, but the larger church body that they belong to, so that they, stopped services and that they were encouraging people to follow, the protocols. But this particular church was and the members were kind of doing what they wanted to. So, and now they are 22% of the cases in Sacramento County. And I think they have 71 total.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading here. Yeah,
it's so problematic on so many levels. I mean, first of all, it highlights the absence of leadership that is based in fact, right? Like, science tells us that this shit is fucking with people, and so you need to stop gathering. And as I understand, I'll out myself as a person of faith who understands what happened, the desire to be in a faith community. And so, and you're searching for support, right? When you go to church, that's your thing. You're trying to be in community and with like-minded people, whatever. I gave up on that a minute ago. So, but I get it. I get wanting to go to church. But to me, it's what we need the church to realize, this church specifically to realize, is they are not invincible. the thing that will protect them from getting sick is not standing in a prayer circle, it's staying home. Like,
can I mention that I think a lot of people are reading this and like being like mad at like, you know, religion or something, you know, and I don't know if people should be going that direction. Honestly, the angriest people I've interacted with on this are my friends of faith, that are just furious that, you know, a pastor or a priest would do something like this. There are a lot of churches, mosques, that have been doing the exact right thing from the beginning. Yeah. And I just wanted to...
This is also not the first time that this specific church has been in the news for being a bunch of shit asses either. These guys...
I've been to their shit assery.
These guys have been in the news before for like being big, like anti-gay activists. Well, you guys will be fucking shocked to hear that one of their priests was convicted of pedophilia in 2018.
Oh my God.
So this isn't like, this is these guys have had problems before. It's not the God stuff doesn't bug me. This bugs me for the same reason as like anti-vaxxers bug me. Where it's like 100%. These guys are like, dude, you know what? If you guys want to move to a fucking island somewhere where you aren't affecting anybody else around you and kill yourselves with this fucking virus, have at it. Like, be my fucking guest. And, dude, if you guys want to keep going to church, go for it. But don't go to the fucking grocery store. Yes. Don't be in parks. Don't be around anybody else. It's the same thing with the anti-vaxxers. Dude, you want your fucking kid to die of a disease we cured like 200 years ago? Great, but he can't come to school with my fucking kid. Right? That's what fucking bugs me about it, is just like this whole thing where it's like, hey, don't bug us. We're doing us. It's like, dude, you're doing all of us with this shit.
Yeah.
That's why it's fucking frustrating.
It's such an example of this, like, it's irresponsibility. It's like, it's fucked up leadership, and it's people being willing to say that their neighbor doesn't matter. Because what we're all doing by staying home is we're saying our community matters. The people that we would otherwise come in contact with, whether we know them or not, they are worth the sacrifice of physical distancing.
Right.
And what is happening here is people saying, I don't give a fuck. And that is, it's infuriating to me. And I can pull the God shit out of it. Like, I don't need to talk about that at all.
Totally.
I'm not pissed off that this is the church. I'm pissed off that this is people being fucking stupid.
Yes, and
ready.
So I do think that there probably is a level of irresponsibility here. I also, and I'm going to pull my Pollyanna hat again, so bear with me.
I love this.
I think that there are some people who are legitimately confused because this has changed so quickly. Like, it was only 3 weeks ago that I recorded my first podcast with you all. What are we on? Podcast number 748? Like,
I feel like you've been here since the beginning.
Same.
The year of March was long, okay? March was a long year, okay? And January feels like 3 decades ago.
Yeah.
And so I think that the thing that we're failing to realize sometimes is that people are not always following the news as closely as we are. And so what could happen is, 3 weeks ago, it was totally fine to gather in groups of 10 or fewer. And then that changed very quickly. And if you miss a few news cycles, you were completely out of the loop. 3 weeks ago, people were still going back and forth to work. And if you took a long nap, you missed it. And now everybody works from home. So a lot changed in a really short period of time. And I'm just offering a little bit of grace to our faith communities, because sometimes what happens is, the leadership is populated by older people who, despite our overwhelm with what's happening in our news feeds and everything else, are not following along this closely, and maybe don't have a habit of reading and watching every day. And so they miss some things. So not knowing the full story, I think the part where I'm angry is where they're like, leave us alone. And I'm like, This is the County Department of Public Health. Like, you all are 22% of the county's cases. accept the help. That's what I'm angry about.
Right.
But the behavior that led them here, I think there are still people who think that groups of 10 or fewer or 6 or fewer are probably okay, and we're washing our hands and maybe we'll just stay away from each other. Like, I think this is changing so quickly that everybody's not always up to speed.
Again, I think that's where it lies on leadership.
Yeah, and I think
extra frustrating
that.
too. It's extra frustrating. I'm sorry. It's extra frustrating too, just because like those of us who are taking this very seriously and not meeting in small groups or anything are like it fucking sucks, dude. Like, it sucks being locked in my fucking house all the time. I would love to be meeting in fucking groups of 6 or less. I would love to have a community to go see here and there, you know, but I'm fucking not doing it, and I'm taking the hit, and I'm fucking enduring all this bullshit for fucking everybody else who lives around me, you know? And to not have that returned when I'm like really kind of starting to feel the fucking burn of social isolation is like 10 times more frustrating than it would be otherwise.
Totally agree.
You know?
Totally agree, Skylar. And I think that's part of the challenge of the lack of leadership is that we have not gotten one clear, consistent message from all leaders from the beginning.
Right.
And when there's not that coordinated response, then it's not all roads lead to the same outcome. It's, well, I heard from the mayor that it was okay as long as it was gatherings less than 100, and our congregation is 84, so that's fine. Well, I heard that you only had to worry about it if you've traveled to China, and nobody in our congregation has been out of the state in the last 6 months, so we're good.
Right.
Well, I heard that, right? Like, that's where I think there's a real challenge. I mean, you know, our other leadership conversation is the Georgia governor who, you know, so we have states within our country who are like, we're going back to work on Monday, and other places that are like, this might last through mid-June. And mixed messaging coming from leadership around the country, the ones who were elected to play this role. So I can only imagine a pastor who's like, I didn't sign up for health education. Like, I don't usually have to distribute the news. I don't usually have to make health decisions on behalf of my congregation. Right. Is now in the position of holding 22% of the county's cases and being, you know, a patient himself or herself or themselves. Right? Like,
that said, though, if the health folks show up and tell you, hey, you guys are 22% of the county's cases, and you tell them to leave them alone, dude, fuck you. Like,
right.
I got no fucking.
I mean, agreed.
Shit.
I think that's where we can wherever we found ourselves with our anger and frustration around this situation, we can really target that now around like, our anger is because they say, fuck you, we're going to do what we want.
Right.
And the problem with that, and, you know, whatever, we say this over and over again, is that, like, that church alone is not just experiencing the fucking. They're going to make it so that the rest of us are feeling the fucking as well. And that is, so we can feel that anger on a couple of different levels.
Yeah, shit like that might be the difference between us getting to, like, go to the fucking bar in June versus July versus August, right?
Right. And and we know we're all ready to hit the bar, or we're gonna.
You can see where my head's at through all this.
We're just
here.
like, we gotta go to the bar.
Like, the fucking bar, please.
But meanwhile, we have people who now Sacramento golf courses are deemed as essential. And so we've got, which is completely fucked up.
That fucking decision.
We know what that's about. That's about class. That's about
100%. That is about class.
It has nothing to do with it actually being an essential.
Because isn't the PGA tournament canceled? Like, if the professionals can't play, why are you?
I gotta like, reading that article pissed me off to no fucking end. As a former golfer, 5-day-a-week golfer for 4.5 to 5 years, like,
what? You?
Yeah.
Oh. Wait, you texted that earlier, and I thought you were joking.
No.
You texted that earlier, and I thought it was the guy trying to scam me out of my house.
No, I grew up in North Long Beach, the inner city, but in Southern California, if you play a sport, you don't have to run the mile once a week at PE. And
I love it.
And so I was like, I'm going to try out for a sport. And it turned out that I was actually good. I got a couple scholarship offers in my senior year of high school, but decided that I was done because I had played a shit ton of golf and I didn't want to do that anymore. But anyway, reading this fucking article was like, this shit isn't fucking essential, you asshole. And of course, this guy who's like I don't even remember his fucking name, who's talking about like how he's gonna commercialize or like commodify or God damn it, I can't speak. I'm so fucking pissed off. He was going to use like the tagline that golf is essential and really just like use that as a marketing tool. It's not fucking essential. It's not like, this is a bunch of privileged ass white people who can't handle having to do a thing that they didn't decide, stay home because someone told them to. So they're like, gotta go out and golf. I gotta go do this thing.
Well, the county could have told them not to.
Right.
Why didn't they?
Right. The county or the city. Because 4 of these things are city courses. 3 of them are county courses, right? So like just so you guys know, the golf courses, the city golf courses who don't give a shit about your health in the face of a global pandemic are William Land Park, Hagen Oaks, Bing Maloney, and Bartley Kavanaugh. The county courses are Ansel Hoffman, Mather, and Cherry Island.
Did Sue Frost have something to do with this?
The Bay Area, San Diego, and Fresno have all closed their courses. Like, we're special.
Of course they have.
Right.
It makes no fucking sense. I mean, yeah.
Here's the part of this thing that fucking made me mad. This dude, so they get like a, they like get one of the regulars to fucking put in a statement or whatever. It says, I'm going to quote, Drew Moreno, a regular there, has been golfing at the course as long as he can remember. Grateful the course was staying open during the pandemic, he gathered there with his friends and father for rounds Wednesday. This is what we do, Moreno said, winking at his father, Tommy McNabe or whatever. This is our routine. This is our time together. Drew,
we don't get that.
That are being fucking disrupted right now, you idiot. We all have families we would like to hang out. We all have friends we'd like to be hanging out with. We are making the sacrifice there, man. You got to do it too. You got to do it too.
Dude, how about that?
Whose routines are being fucked up by this thing. Everybody's disrupted.
The quote right after that from Mike Woods, who's the PGA director of golf over at Hagen Oaks, says, we've found that 95% of people are into this, and it resonates. People want to do the right thing in spacing because they want to keep golfing.
Somebody needs to show up there with paintball guns and like water balloons.
Bro, I want to keep.
Awesome.
You know what? I don't have too much else going on right now. We'll see. We'll see what we can do.
That would be awesome.
You know what? The other quote that pisses me the fuck off.
Which one of you motherfuckers is Drew Moreno?
He says just a couple lines down, people want to golf, need to golf, so the walls don't close in on them at home. When this is all over, I'm thinking of branding that. Golf is an essential exercise. Fuck you.
Make these people pay. Oh.
Absolutely.
My
Fuck
gym
you, Mike
is
Woods.
closed. I don't understand.
Yeah.
My gym is closed.
Same.
Yeah.
Like, go to the public park. Hang out with the poors. You won't die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
right.
promise.
You can't catch it. Like, you're gonna be just fine. Take a walk around the fucking block, asshole. Like, you don't have to go golfing. You're like, this is the time when people of privilege who are going golfing get to feel just a little bit of discomfort, but they can't do it. They just can't do it. And so the city and the county's like, or the county's like, you know what? Yeah, golf's essential. We don't want to piss off the riches.
We're moving on kind of on time here. So I wanted to hop over to the eastern side of the U.S. and discuss some people with their questioning leadership skills as well. Flo, would you like to discuss that?
Sure. So Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, he finally decided to put the state of Georgia on a shelter-in-place order, so catching up with, many other states weeks ago. And in the process of doing so, he says that he just became aware yesterday that people who were asymptomatic could indeed transmit COVID-19 to others.
Amazing.
Did he just
and
get the internet?
This just in to Georgia.
Like,
he just
we're in a pandemic. If you're an elected and you are not following this at least half as much as my most hyper-vigilant Facebook friend, you're doing your leadership wrong right now.
Say that.
Like, that's where we are in this process. You should have been getting daily briefings on the global pandemic since at least 2 to 3 weeks before it was declared a global pandemic, and certainly since it became a global pandemic, and since many of your colleagues who are also, who are other governors, declared a state of emergency. Like, at minimum, you should be 4 weeks into knowing about this.
This dude is either a completely incompetent moron or he's a fucking liar. Like, either way, it's not good either way. It doesn't really fucking matter.
Is all of the above an option?
Yeah, well, sure.
I think it is. We're going to go with all of the above.
And a grifter, right? I mean, he stole an election from one of the most competent politicians our generation has seen.
Did you guys?
I can't tell you what kind of governor Stacey would be, but what I can say is that she would have known before yesterday that the disease causing the global pandemic was indeed transmitted by asymptomatic carriers.
Right.
I will rest assured she would be a governor who would know that.
Yeah. I think that's a fair statement.
I feel like I keep having this like my Pollyanna thought perhaps is like that people are going to wake the fuck up to these idiots and vote their asses out. Like, we can only hope, right? But then there's the part of me that's just the cynic that's like, no, these motherfuckers are just going to keep on keeping on and spreading their bullshit.
I had a thought the other day along those lines where I was like, is this just like a 4-year experiment where the entire thing is summarized by, and that's why elections have consequences?
Right.
Like, because I just feel like we keep going down the rabbit hole. It's like we got too comfortable with the Trump administration, and it's like, let's throw a global pandemic at you so you can recognize that leadership matters in everybody from your pastor to your school superintendent to your mayor to your county supervisor. Like, is this just like we're going to conk you over the head with this until you finally figure it out? I don't know.
Did you guys, speaking of Georgia, did you guys see that the state house speaker, David Ralston? So they are getting ready to, because Georgia's primary hasn't happened yet, they're sending out mail-in ballots to everybody in Georgia. And the GOP in Georgia is freaking out. And this dude, their House Speaker, just blatantly came out and said the fucking quiet part loud, where he's like, if everybody in the state votes, the Republicans are fucked. So the Republicans are freaking out right now because they're worried about a high voter turnout in Georgia during the primary. It is hilarious to watch these guys be like, wait a minute, but if everybody can vote and people aren't obstructed from like getting to their voting places, how are Republicans supposed to win any elections? It's like, yeah, guys.
I feel like they've been saying that quiet part loud for a little while now.
Well, this guy legitimately came out on the record. Their state house speaker came out on the record and said that, I think yesterday or today, what is it? I can't remember what his exact quote was, but it was something along, it was like completely wild to hear this dude just say this shit out loud. Like, dude, you're not supposed to say this. Like, we all know it, but you can't say it.
Can you all imagine if this was like 4 years ago and we would still be like 2 months away from having our primary? Like, it's hard. I mean, March was the longest year of my life, so it's really hard for me to even think back to the fact that, like, we had our primary a month ago tomorrow, but in every election that I voted in years past, it was always so late that we had the primary.
Right.
And what would the conversation be like here if none of these elections had happened already?
Yeah. Well, now Wisconsin's trying to go ahead with their election on Tuesday.
Wow.
Good Jesus fucking Christ.
Mm-hmm. So how about Florida? Let's talk a little bit about Florida. Anyone?
Can they just break off? Can they break off of the island?
I mean, so what? Like, so we're talking about Governor DeSantis has finally declared shelter.
On April, was it
Today.
an April Fool's joke?
Yeah.
Oh, April 2nd. Yeah.
And
he's like, guess what? Finally read the news. I'm gonna go ahead and say this is real.
This is a state that has a deeply elderly population.
Yeah.
Where you go to retire is Florida.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's a quarter of the state's population. Fully 25%.
They're like our Italy.
At risk. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And he did exactly what you shouldn't do. And it, like, I am terrified that they're just prepped in the next 3 weeks to just get fucking overrun.
I mean, if ever the AARP should have wielded its power, that was the time.
Yeah.
I'm actually really shocked because overall, older people vote and tend to be. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, like, you can cut, Medicaid all you want to, or in California's case, Medi-Cal, but you don't touch Medicare because those old people will eat you alive.
Right.
And so I'm actually really surprised that of all the states that Florida was so, like, cavalier about this. I mean, I think it speaks to obviously the power of industry not wanting to shut things down, and so kind of wielding their power. But I would have thought that if any other states outside of the usual ones that like tend to heed public health science and try to make good decisions were going to like be early adopters, I would have assumed it would have been Florida.
I mean, we though have spoken on this show about the fact that older generations have been slower on the uptake to take this thing seriously, right?
Right.
I have to imagine that that's just as true in Florida as it is anywhere else, of older folks kind of being like, whatever.
I guess. And I suppose AARP might be a little bit more conservative too. But it's scary and it's sad. And, I'm talking with friends in New York about how things are looking out there, and I'm terrified for them. And they're, the ones I talk to are doing what you should be doing, like literally not leaving the house for days and days. But New
York is so condensed, it's hard to engage in social distancing.
It is, yeah.
Like there are too many people in too small a space.
Yeah, and Jersey's going through it too.
That's like a different issue, right?
It's wild to me to watch guys like DeSantis, like harp on like, well, like so much of our money is from tourism, we can't do shelter in place. It's like, dude, have you seen Jaws, right? The mayor of Amityville is a fucking bad guy in that movie, right? Like for a fucking reason. You're making the exact same argument right here. Shut the fucking beach down, dog. There's big ass sharks eating people. Fuck's sake.
I feel like this is the numbers are going to be what they are in the next few weeks, and it's going to suck. And I guess we'll have that conversation when it comes to it. Could I move us on to, sort of looking at kind of where the country is today, right? We have now globally just over 1 million cases, I believe. 244,678 in the U.S. as of Thursday night. With 5,911 deaths. That's a 2.4% death rate. In places like New York, it's looking particularly bad because they don't have the space or the infrastructure in their ERs or the material, the devices needed to help people who are suffering from the worst cases of coronavirus. And that's on the rise there, right? You're seeing,
and they are currently 1 in 4 cases in the U.S.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Jersey looks bad. Detroit's on the rise. It looks like there's some cautious optimism in Washington and California, but that doesn't mean we're out of the woods by any means. So everyone please stay the fuck home. But, now we're seeing what's up in Florida, possibly like in Atlanta now too. I've noticed in the last week, I've been hearing from people who have like know somebody who has the coronavirus. And I have just now heard in the last day, of like a Facebook friend who's like, yeah, I should just let everybody know our family's got it. We're on the up and up now. We didn't want to freak anyone out, but like, it's touching us now, right?
Yeah.
And I talked to a group chat of friends last night from all over the country, and they know people who've got it, they know people who've died, and like, so now we're getting into the real, this is where it gets a little real in the next few weeks. So we wanted to discuss a little bit kind of keeping some of the challenges of keeping our heads on straight and some of the things we can do to do that. And Flo, I think you mentioned that public health advocates had actually been working toward that. So I don't know if you want to discuss any more kind of your experience recently and maybe some of the ideas that your folks have come up with.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was definitely struggling. And, I think in the back of my mind is also concern because my mother is a baby boomer and is in the high risk category because she also has asthma. And so, just recognizing that I am 3,000 miles away from her and she's in New Jersey. And so, a lot of this is of course, really challenging. And so I was finding myself, crying and not feeling the energy to do the things that I typically do, wanting to just kind of like not work and just nap and just like I was irritable, all of these things, right, that are signs that, something's going on with you. And so I was telling people that I was struggling, and our organization has been really good about it. And my executive director and, several others on the executive team with me all reached out and said, remember we have vacation time. Remember you have a team. Like if you want to take time, if you want to do things. And so I was at a place where I couldn't even figure out what I needed to do to get out of the funk. But when I finally did, I reached out to find a therapist, something that I had meaning to do for a while anyway, because I believe in like preventively investing in therapy. And the few people I wanted to go to had a full caseload and I just didn't. Right. And so it's just one of those things that like kind of spins on. And so I reached out and started to set something up through telehealth, which is awesome. And then I looked and I realized maybe I'm feeling this way because I now have more work because I'm responding to coronavirus because we're a public health advocacy organization.
Right.
And all the things I love about my job, interfacing with people and engaging in policy face-to-face, and I'm an extrovert, are now gone. And I have more work and I'm in a room that has no artwork and bare walls, and I'm interacting with one person per day, and I don't get to get outside while the sun is out, right? So these are all recipes for disaster. Oh, and there's a global pandemic, right? And so I reached out and I said, you know what? I think my answer is going to be, I'm changing my work hours. I'm going to be off at 2 every day so that I can get outside for a sustained amount of time and be at least where it looks like people are around because they're driving or walking or whatever, even if I'm not engaging with them, that I'm not feeling like the world is this deserted, place when I am out, and that I'm getting more sunlight, and then I'm going to get more physical activity because it releases endorphins and it makes me feel good. And so yesterday I took a 3-hour walk. Today I took a 2-hour walk with my husband, and it's really lifted my mood, and it's also allowed me to be able to shift and feel productive, but also feel like I'm allowing myself the grace and space to be able to recognize that maybe I'm not going to get everything done. Like grind culture is toxic, and I'm not going to get everything done I would have, and that's okay. And so our organization has been good about that. We've been reminding everyone to take vacation time, that you can use flexible time. We're at home now. So if you want to do some of your hours early in the morning, if you want to do them in the evening, if you want to take off because you're parenting and you just don't have it today, like do that. And then we're having meetings 3 times a week where the entire purpose is just to focus on our mental health. So we do meditation during them. We do gratitude circles. We're doing, mindfulness exercises. And it's really nice to have those 30 minutes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to get on a video chat and talk with each other and connect. And so, and we're doing those check-ins when we're talking to people and we're saying, do you need something? How can I support you? The call always starts with, does anybody here have needs? Like toilet paper or food or, a break or whatever. And so I think it's really helping us to be able to kind of keep up with ourselves during this pandemic.
I love that.
Yeah. I think this is really, it's a time when we're really having to turn back toward that self-care, right? That mug.
I know. So I can't.
I feel a lot. I feel cared for.
It's utterly ridiculous.
Oh, Skylar did it. I think like as a manager in a nonprofit setting, I have always really like talked about the importance of self-care. You got to take care of yourself in order to do this work because it's really hard. Like burnout rate is super high in folks who are working frontline nonprofit jobs. And I think what this has really taught me is that I was really good at preaching it and not that good at practicing. And I hit a real like rock bottom moment this week after Sunday night. I had a very like borderline fever on just like laying on the floor in the bathroom, not doing well at all. Monday I was super just like out of it, called out of the pod recording, called out of everything that I had. In some cases I didn't call out of things, I just didn't show up. And I woke up Tuesday and was like, shit, like this is my wake up call, right? And I had been like really trying to sort of get ahead of myself in terms of that self-care. And in some ways I had, but in others I had not. And I think just in this week, I've sort of realized just like the importance of taking care and the importance of carving time out for myself. Like I've set alarms, or I have my phone on settings to just like not have notifications during certain times of the day. I've set alarms on my phone that tell me to take a break and like just walk away from things. And I've also been just like so just like heartened by what's happening in the social media community around people showing up to support one another. There's a local group that exists for women on Instagram called Join Girl Gang, and it's led by a woman called Tuesday, and she describes it as an authentic community exploring healing through expression. And she's done a really cool thing by like planning multiple Instagram live things or sessions every day for women to show up to. And they range from like cooking to meditating to yoga to journaling, all of these things. And that is like, salute. Those things have really helped me. Like I stop and, plan. I see like what she has scheduled and I'm like, well, this is when I'm going to meditate today, or this is when I'm going to stretch today. And it has really forced me to prioritize me. And also I'm learning how to say no as a result of this. Like I can't do it. And it's huge. I've been in therapy since I was 14. And I'm 37. And in the last 2 years, I've learned that I have a real problem saying no, because I like to stay busy, because being busy and doing things means that I am worthy and the space that I inhabit matters. But what the Rona is teaching me is that I can say no and still be valuable to my community. So I don't know, self-care, like so important right now. Take a minute, be still, take a deep breath. That's how we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
And showing up for each other, right? Like in the ways that we can, not in ways that overstretch us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I told you all my story, I guess a week ago. I think it hit me at an earlier time than all of you. I had my first ever anxiety attack.
Yeah.
Thinking that it was a coronavirus symptoms, and it was terrifying. I almost passed out in a store. I was like laying in a park. I had to call a friend to take me to the ER because I thought I was going to lose consciousness. And Flo, I was reaching out to you, just like, all right, like, what should I be doing? Am I making the right move going to the ER? And I think another thing is, you know, when it does get to be too much, it is very helpful to have a plan for who to reach out to, especially because in that moment, and I've never felt anything like this, but like the oxygen wasn't getting to my brain and I couldn't think straight. I couldn't like troubleshoot the way I can on a day-to-day basis. So that was really interesting too.
You reached out to me, and when you reached out, you were like, okay, so when do I decide you were like, I think I need to go to the ER, but how do I decide that I need to go? And so I was like, well, walk me through what's going on with you. And I was like, I think you're right. I think you need to go. Yeah. And then we were going back and forth about the process because I wasn't sure if the ER wanted to do some screening before you come in, because masks are so hard to find, and the recommendation is to wear them if you're feeling sick. And so we were going back and forth, and I was like, I honestly, like, things are changing so quickly, I'm not even sure if you need to call before you come, if they're doing screening outside. Like, I can't tell you what it looks like because I'm trying to stay away from EDs, but I have not actually like looked into it. And so the recommendation right now is to reach out to your physician, if you have one, to do the initial screening, and they'll give you instructions because it is varying by hospital to hospital. And then literally as I was putting clothes on, because I was out in the garden when you called, and the only reason I knew you called was because it interrupted the music. And so I was like, okay, let me put my clothes on. And by the time I like got my clothes on and was getting ready to go out the door, Dave was like, never mind. I know what it is. I'm good. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. Well,
Flo was coming to meet me at the ER because the person driving me like did not want to be there.
Sure, understandable.
There was kind of a get the fuck out of my car vibe when she realized what I was like needed help with. But like, I mean, that's part of what this is all about, right? Yeah. Like it's you want to help, but you can't get too close, and like you want to, you know, and it's very hard for us to navigate the humanity element when it's like, well, we got to protect ourselves too. And but yeah, it's good. Just for the listeners, I would say know your community, know your person to call, especially if you live alone. And I think both of you have given really great advice as well. Skylar, you've been doing pretty well the last couple of weeks. Has anything really changed for you?
Yeah, like a whole bunch of shit is different for me. So I'm not working right now. So I don't have a job. I have nowhere to go during the day or night. And that has, like, I am somebody who likes to stay pretty busy. And I knew coming into this that this was going to be a challenge for me. So I went in with a bunch of kind of like ideas, you know, of like, okay, here's like a way that I can navigate this. And one of the things that I do for myself, and I would recommend this to anybody else who's listening to this, who's also like similarly furloughed or temporarily unemployed because of this thing. When I go to bed every night, I make myself a list of like tasks, and they're not like huge tasks. It's not like deep clean your whole apartment, but it's like, hey, spend 45 minutes cleaning your bathroom, or like stuff like that, like stuff that's easy to do. And like, you know, like I am somebody who like I like to make music, and I like to make videos, and, you know, kind of make stuff in my off time. And so I like set an intention for the next day, and assign myself like, okay, like spend some time creating, spend some time cleaning your place. And then by like, you know, by the time the sun's going down, I at least have a sense of like, okay, like I, you know, was where I did shit today. It wasn't like I just sat around my house, because otherwise that's what I will do. Right. And that has honestly been fairly helpful for me. The other side of it that's kind of making it a little easier too is that I decided that I wouldn't do that on the weekends. And when I do work, I work in the service industry. So I am not Monday through Friday, ever. So I'm kind of taking this as an opportunity to try that out. Like, so on Saturdays and Sundays, I don't set myself anything. And if all I want to do on Saturdays and Sundays is like play video games and drink beer, then that's what I do. And I don't feel fucking bad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that up, the list making thing, because on your average weekday, I might end up like taking like a 3-hour bath and then just being like, oh man, like I just took a 3-hour bath.
Yeah.
But I think like that's a thing. I think that like right now we need to just have compassion for ourselves.
Sure.
And do the things, right? Do the things that feel good and that afford us a moment of normalcy. And if it's a 3-hour moment of normalcy in the bath, then like we should take it. And I think it's also like being able to find the spaces where we don't have to hustle and grind, right?
No.
Like
Right.
because this is like we are having normal reactions to an abnormal situation, and whatever those normal reactions are, as dysfunctional as they may feel to us, like you just like let's go and just do it. Like if I decide to come home from work at 12:30 and drink a half a bottle of wine or rosé in the shower and smoke a cigarette while in the shower, I'm gonna do it. And it's gonna be fine. Flo, I know how you feel about my smoking.
Well, especially during this too, health officials are saying if you're
fine, don't smoke, people. Don't do the smoking, but drink the fucking rosé.
I mean, also just be careful about our alcohol consumption as well, because it can suppress your immune system. So
this is where I
drink in moderation if you can.
Okay, I'm gonna have
I'm just trying to set us up for success.
Right
That's
now.
all.
You're right. We know. Yeah.
No,
Shannon's
you're right.
not having it at all.
I am having a White Claw, but I'm just, I want to be accurate in the information we're sharing.
Absolutely.
I know. I appreciate that, because I can certainly advise people toward their vices in the wrong way.
I think to Shannon's point, one of the things that I would say is like, I mean, especially in a case like mine where I like legit, if I don't make shit for myself to do, I won't do anything all day. Right. And so like part of that is to like, I have had moments where I've done this, is to kind of be like, you're probably never gonna like God willing, you'll never be in a situation like this for the rest of your life, until you retire.
Yeah.
Where work is not a consideration for you. So like understand that like I mean, this is me having a conversation with myself, but like understand that you've got literally months coming up to do all this stuff. So if you want to take a day and like treat yourself to whatever the fuck you feel like doing, do it. You're never going to have another opportunity to just like burn a day and not worry about it,
Right.
So that's kind of been another, I don't know, thing that I've been trying, and I'm bad at giving that to myself, but I have been working on being able to like do that for myself without feelings of guilt or like, oh, I'm not doing enough with my time or whatever, how I normally feel about shit like that.
Skylar, do you plan yours out? Do you say to yourself like the day before, tomorrow I'm going to do nothing and feel okay about it? Or do you like have the list and then just throughout the day concede to not doing it? I'm wondering,
I'm doing the,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm doing the no planning stuff on weekends.
Okay.
And then I'll make myself a list, but if I have 7 things on the list and I only get through 4 or 5 of them, I'm not going to like beat myself up about it. I'm just like, okay, well, you'll do that tomorrow,
I feel like I think that's good. And also I think there's a call to action in that, like we spend a lot of time talking about our calls to action are for the good of the community. And maybe right now our call to action is just like take a moment for yourself and like really spend some time thinking about what you need in order to be okay and do that thing. Like, And one of those things is, if you live alone, figure out who the person that you're going to call is if things get fucked. If you need to go to the emergency room, who are you going to call? Like, put that shit on a Post-it, put that person's name and their phone number on a Post-it by your front door, so that if necessary, that's ready. If you live with a partner, spouse, roommate, friend, whatever, like, put your, if you have insurance, put all that information on an index card in a public spot so that people know, like, what your shit is. If you're taking meds, put that on the card, all of it. Like, so do that. And once you've done that, then stop and figure out what you need to just feel like yourself again. And if that means that you need a week to do nothing and you have the space to do nothing but take 3-hour baths, then that's okay.
Yeah, do it.
Like, right now, I feel like the messaging around, like, productivity is not of importance right now, is not, like, we need to hear that over and over and over again, because this is a time that requires us to just, like, take a step back and fucking take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
Absolutely. And I keep seeing this really dangerous meme online, so I just want to address it. It's like, if you're in lockdown and you don't come out with at least a new hustle and a new job and a new this, then, it wasn't that you lacked time before, it was that you weren't really serious about it. And I'm just like,
yeah.
Or this isn't a paid vacation where you're not on sabbatical.
Right.
This is a global pandemic, and it is okay in the midst of experiencing a community trauma for you to not be okay and for you to not have to then find other ways to survive capitalism. Like, it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay if you're not, if you're not taking this the same way you would a planned sabbatical. And that was kind of why I asked you that question, Skylar, about, like, planning to not do anything versus conceding to not do anything, because I don't know that we always get the same benefit from the concession that we do from the permission that we give ourselves when we plan it. And I started noticing that about my husband. He will say, I'm not doing anything tomorrow. And I'm probably not doing anything tomorrow either once he says that, but I'm not planning to. So I do feel a little disappointed at the end of the day, maybe that I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do if I don't give myself that permission up front.
Yeah. Right. I love it. We are getting way over on time. So
Let's wrap it up.
Shannon, can you make a little announcement to our 25 and over patrons a month?
Oh my gosh, I would love to. I'm so excited to say that today in the mail, I received a box of all of those things we promised you. So our 25 and over patrons, if you are not local, I'm going to pack up your coffee mug and your t-shirt this
You're
weekend.
Getting it.
You're getting it
So
this
exciting.
weekend. And I'm going to pack it up this weekend, and I'm going to pop it in the mail on Monday after work. So depending on where you find yourself, you will have your stuff by Friday if you're not local. And if you are local, I am going to pack your stuff up tomorrow afternoon and do the very best that I can to get it to you on your doorstep by the end of tomorrow.
I love it. So we're going to be setting up a store on the site too. This includes Voices River City mugs, t-shirts, the little sticker, that blue sticker that you might see all around town, and then also this
all around town
one, California, made by one of our longtime listeners and readers, Brian McComas. So I'm excited to just move on to this next phase. And Shannon, thank you for taking the lead on getting the merch out here.
Yeah, I mean, when you see the where the fuck is it? For people who are watching the show, when this is on your porch,
that's a handsome bag.
That is a handsome bag.
Your merch. So I'm actually, it was a highlight of my day to see. I was like, what the fuck is that giant box of shit on my fucking porch? And then
That's
I
me.
opened it.
I'm
and
bored. I'm sorry.
It's like Skylar Lane.
I'm not working right now.
I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to get folks their stuff, and I'm going to do my best to get you locals your stuff by the end of the weekend. I'll say, yeah. And I'm going to wear gloves.
That way she can give herself permission to not do it one of those days in advance so she can fully enjoy it.
I'm bringing gloves with me and a can of Lysol spray, and I'll drop it on your porch, and then I'm going to spray it down with the Lysol disinfectant. And so it's going to be hella Rona free.
Hell yeah. Well, Dave, I don't know. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show yet or not, but I'm not working right now, so I have all this time on my hands.
Right.
And I've been filling it up with this fantastic voices content, but I'm starting to run low, and I'm wondering if you're unemployed like me and you want more fantastic voices content, where do I go? What should I do? Where do I look?
Absolutely. We do have a website on the internet. It is called voicesrivercity.com. If you type that in the little bar at the top of your web browser, you should be able to find us there.
I'm going to try it right now.
We're also now on YouTube with video of all of our podcasts, so that's really exciting. And we're Voices River City on YouTube. Of course, we're Voices River City on Facebook. We are at Voices River City on Twitter. On Twitter, I am Kempa. That's YOUKNOWKEMPA.
I am Guillotine for you. That's Guillotine, the number 4 YOU.
I am Shan N.D. Stevens.
And I am Flojaune, FLOJAUNE.
Awesome. I also just want to let people know that a local podcast has relaunched Serious Talk Seriously by Johnny Flores. He's calling this little thing Stay the Fuck Home. And it's just like little 15-minute interviews with Sacramento folks. Like he's only doing this because we are where we are right now, and he wants to connect back with the community. Johnny is an amazing podcast consultant. He's done so much for me and for Voices. And they're always fun to listen to, so check that out. Once again, thank you to Be Brave Bold Robot for your music, and take care of yourselves, everyone.
Please do.
Yeah, stay healthy, stay sane, stay away from
out of that udder mug. You're all great. We'll see you on Tuesday.
All right, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.